15 years of experience in essential oil alone, even before doTERRA started. And she now runs an international business and consultancy group for health and wellness. So she has been sharing a lot of basically training for people who wants to improve their wellness and also find a business opportunity. Miss Carrie is also a speaker and a best-selling author on books on health and wellness, goodness of EO, and its usage. So we are very privileged today to have her sharing her knowledge on Adaptiv and other oils for emotional support. So Miss Carrie, we are happy to have you. Thank you very much for joining us and are willing to do this sharing. And I'll pass the session now to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here with all of you. I absolutely love Malaysia. I have enjoyed my time there so much. Last summer, I had the great privilege of presenting in person. And we're going to do what we can in the next best way to do this through Zoom. And hopefully through this presentation, you will learn to have maybe an opportunity to be a little bit more joyful through your lockdown, that you're going to learn some information that you can then connect with other people and share, and then hopefully you can grow not only yourself and with your family, but also connecting to members of your team and your friends and bringing people into this information about essential oils. So I'm going to share my screen right now so we can get started. And hopefully you can see this. And if you can see it, maybe just put a Y in the chat. Does this look good? Excellent. All right. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so we're talking about Adaptiv this morning, which is one of my absolute favorite products that doTERRA has. I will share with you that my first experience with doTERRA was not emotional, it was physical originally. I had a hearing problem that really I struggled with for many, many years. And it wasn't until I was introduced to essential oils and started to use them that I found that they had profound physical and emotional effects. And what's been really wonderful for me was when I was first introduced to essential oils, I was very skeptical. I had a strong scientific background. My father was a doctor, my mother was a nurse. I also studied science. And so to me, it was a little bit outside of my way of thinking. So some of you may have encountered that with either yourself or with other people. I don't want you to think that talking to people who have a strong science background that they can't be introduced and interested in essential oils. It's not the case, but you may have to talk to them about emotional well-being, and you may need to talk to them about aromatherapy first, because for very scientifically focused people, oftentimes the idea of using essential oil for a physical concern or for an ailment of any kind to support your body physically can seem outside of their understanding of what essential oils really are. But if you open the doorway and talk to them about emotions, talk to them about well-being, talk to them about wellness and prevention and stress management, this is often a great way to create a good conversation with people. And so although I started out more with aromatherapy and relaxation, one of my first essential oils that I ever used was lavender. And of course, lavender is going to be in this blend. What I learned was that even though I was using them for an emotional reason or using them for a relaxation reason, that I started to physically feel better. And as someone who's really interested in science, I had to find out why. So hopefully, if any of you have the same curiosity that I do, you'll be able to connect with some of this information. Because this morning, we're going to talk about the science of mental wellness. And I want you to understand, and maybe you already do, that your emotional well-being and your physical well-being are tied together. You can't take them apart. you cannot separate the two. And so when we have a really good understanding of how to help our body physically through different challenges, we also need to understand that if we're not getting the results that we're looking for, oftentimes we're forgetting a big component, and that big component is mental wellness. So even in times when you feel like a very strong emotional person, I think we can all agree that we have never been in a lockdown situation like this before. We certainly have never seen one on a global scale in our entire history. And we've never really seen how this affects people working from home, living with their children, living in small spaces, having to deal with fear and uncertainty. And the stress that mounts up from that is different from the kind of stress we're dealing with when we're in our offices or we're in traffic or we're dealing with the pressures of work or school or family obligations. This is a whole new environment. But I will share with you that I believe we have a really good tool for you to begin to use if you haven't started to use this already. So let's first talk about mental wellness and what that means. Firstly, we have to be aware that it exists to begin with. So for example, you may find that you disconnect your physical health with your mental well-being. You may find that you are a really strong person and you're very, very determined, and you don't want to look at any of those emotional components of your daily temperature, if you will. Like if you were to take your temperature, where you take a gauge of how you feel, sometimes we take those emotional concerns and we push them to the side. And we only look at, I have no pain in my body, or I have no lack of energy, so I must be fine. But the truth is, there are other things that we have to take a look at. So if stress is coming into your life, and it always does, the question is, how are you doing with that on a day-to-day basis? Is it changing you physically, and is it changing you emotionally? And if you can take care of things on a day-to-day basis without much concern or effect, then you're probably somewhat in homeostasis or in balance. But if you find that you're on this roller coaster and that you're not quite sure how to manage days, and some are really good and some are really low, then you have to start incorporating these oils so that you can use these as a tool to keep yourself in a state of really good mental wellness. So those are the definitions we're going to use this morning, and we want to really take a look. Now, I think it's probably within reason that most of us feel like this right now. I'm just raising up my hand. I feel like I'm drowning. I have to share with you, this is my 7th week of the lockdown where I live. I live in a town very close to New York City where we have some of the largest number of COVID cases in the world. So in terms of diagnosed cases and new cases, we have large stadiums being taken over and are now turned into hospitals. I have lost several neighbors to this horrible disease. People's grandparents. We hear about bad news and illness every day. Both of my kids had to come home from college and high school, and many of the things that they had planned to do this year have been canceled, and that's weighing on them heavily. We're all trying to work in the same house, in the same small space, and it can become challenging. And there's no reason why you can't want to put up your hand and just say, I've had enough and I don't want to do this anymore. But we don't really have a choice. And this is what stress is all about. Stress is not a choice. Stress is something that happens to us whether we invite it into our life or not. And it can come from many different places. It can be neurological, it can be chemical, it can be behavioral, it can have to do with your thoughts and your emotions. So all of these 5 areas, stress can enter and create a reaction. It can manifest itself in this way. So let's take a look at how this happens, because I think if you'll understand how your body works, it's going to be easier for you to be mindful of what's going on and then start to use the right essential oils at the right time for the right reason. So I want you to divide your nervous system into 3 parts. So we have the stressed part of your nervous system, that's in the red. We call that your sympathetic nervous system. And that is from your lower back, your upper back, all right, all the way down your spine, just to above your lower back where your hips would start. Okay, so that's called your sympathetic nervous system. This is your fight or flight mechanism, which means that if something is going to create stress in your life, you're going to be able to either manage it or run away from it. Now, when we were designed originally as human beings and we were out in nature and nature was full of threats, we would have to be able to defend ourselves or run away from danger. And so our bodies are designed to run away from things like tigers, right? Most of us don't experience a tiger in our daily lives anymore, but our bodies are still designed to manage that. So if you go back to the way your body was originally designed and a threat would come into your life, right? Like you were approached by a tiger, you would either run up a tree or you would battle it out with the tiger. So that's what they mean. You either fight it off or you fly away, right? You go away. And both of these reactions take a lot of energy, so much energy that there's very little else your body can do. So what happens? The first thing that happens is your pupils will dilate, okay? So your vision becomes really clear. You become very, very alert of everything that's going on. And you can see my body, my posture. When you're in an alert state, all of your muscles are tense and they're ready to go, right? And this is something that happens no matter what the stress is. And then you have increased breathing, right? But it's very shallow. So you're taking these like very tense breaths. If you think about it, when you're under a lot of stress, you can barely breathe, right? You can barely breathe because of the way your sympathetic nervous system works. You get an accelerated heart rate. You know why? Because your body needs more blood to deal with the threat, right? Whether you're running or you're fighting, you need more blood coursing through your body. You cannot digest anything. When you're in a state of threat, your body's digestion shuts down. We're going to talk about why that's a challenge in a minute. And then the last thing is your muscles get really, really tense. All right. So that's on the threat, fight or flight. Let's look at the other side. Now we have the relaxed state. This is what counterbalances the sympathetic. Okay. So the tiger comes into your life. You battle it out with the tiger or you run up the tree, right? Well, you're not going to stay there forever. No, you either killed the tiger or you got away from the tiger. And now you can relax knowing that you were able to escape danger. And that's when your relaxed side kicks in. So your parasympathetic nervous system will start to kick in and counterbalance the rest of the stress. Now, it is the parasympathetic nervous system, the one in the blue, that deals with the business of life. So everything we do to function in life happens within our parasympathetic nervous system. So that is the base of your neck, called the cranial, all the way to your lower back, the sacra. Okay, so that's where we get cranial sacra. And they just kind of bookend your spine and they send signals throughout your body to do different things. Now they're the opposite of the sympathetic. So it decreases your alertness, right? You don't have to be aware of everything. You don't have to keep a list of all of your troubles in your mind, right? You can actually empty your mind and relax. You can constrict your pupils, right? You don't have to have the sharpness of your vision. You don't have to see for miles and miles. You can breathe deeply, right? Nice cleansing breaths, strengthening your lungs, adding oxygen to your blood. All of this is really important. It will decrease your heart rate, because if your heart would not decrease, eventually it would actually explode, right? You can't just pump blood for hours and hours and hours. You have to have that come down and constrict. It also allows you to digest your food. And when we digest, we can get lots of nutrition and we can grow and everything is good. And it will decrease your muscle tone, right? You can relax your muscles. You don't have to have the tenseness in your body. Now, is one system more important than the other? No, they're both really important. Here's where we have a challenge. When we're under so much stress, right, in our new modern world, and it comes at us from so many different places, your body doesn't know when it's safe to shut down. So we go into something called sympathetic overdrive, which just means that it's dominating the way your body reacts and the way your body is functioning. And that parasympathetic, that very, very important part of your nervous system, doesn't have a chance to balance things out. All right, so we have a bit of an imbalance here, and we're going to see the effects of that. But we have a third part to our nervous system that we have to keep in mind, and that's called the enteric nervous system. Now, this system is just as important, and its role comes from our gut health. So the types of food you eat, the amount of good bacteria that's in your gut, all send signals to your brain that create some really important emotional hormones. And without good gut health, you cannot create a good connection between your gut and your brain. And this is one of the hottest topics in science today. So keep an eye out for some articles about that. If you like to read about the science, this is something that is really becoming forefront in scientific research, because we understand now that what we eat is so very important, not just to how much muscle tone we have or how much energy we have, but it's really important to our brain health and the way our hormones are produced and the way the rest of our body works. So extremely important part of your nervous system, the enteric nervous system. All right. So we all experience stress. I hope you will agree with me on that. And it comes in different forms and it affects people differently, right? It's not a one size fits everyone. So what are the constants of stress? You have to understand that you will always have a chemical change. It will always affect your autonomic responses. So the things that you can't control, your heart rate, your breathing, your muscle tone, your digestion. You can't decide to do those things. Those are autonomic. And it also affects your physiology, right? How you physically feel. People who are depressed or anxious will often talk about being physically in pain, right? Because it has a physical effect on them. But there are variables. What causes our stress will be different. What causes my stress versus what causes your stress, those aren't going to be the same. We're not the same people. We don't live the same lives. The length of time stress will come into your life is also going to vary. We did not realize that this lockdown would take so long. I think some of us thought it would be 2 weeks and it would be over. And so now there's a question of, how long is this going to last? And there's an uncertainty and some fear that can come up with that situation. And then, of course, the intensity. Some days you feel like you're under a lot of stress. Other days are a little bit easier, right? So the intensity can kind of go in and out, ebb and flow. So let's look at how this works in your body so you really understand what's going on. The first thing that happens is there is a stressful event. Now your body creates chemistry, a little bit of chemical response, so we know what to do. Then it moves in throughout your body and there's actual physiological changes, and then signals are sent back into your body to create the balance, right? The sympathetic, the parasympathetic, the enteric. They're all talking to each other all the time without you realizing it, trying to balance out one or the other. But when that sympathetic becomes so dominant, the other two really become weakened and they need support. So how are we going to give them that support? And how do we know that this is really affecting us? Let's look at some of the big clues that we have. Do you ever feel like your mind is too full of information? That it's hard to keep things straight? That you feel overwhelmed by things? That you don't know what to do first? That you find sometimes you just decide to do nothing instead? Sometimes people will call this monkey mind, right? It's just everything is just clouding around and it's becoming too intense. So let's take a look at this. What do we do when we feel this way? Sometimes we just go get something to eat. And what do we eat? We usually eat carbohydrates. So let's talk about the physiology of why that happens. Well, if you're in a stressed situation and you're in a threat, you're going to need energy to either fight it off or to run away from it. Now, again, modern threat, like a lockdown. I'm not running anywhere. I'm probably sitting more than I ever have. And I'm not really fighting off any physical threat. I can't see a germ, right? I'm just kind of sitting here waiting. And then I think to myself, gosh, you know what I'd really like? I'd really like to go get something to eat. And instead of choosing, healthy fruits and vegetables or lean meats, I'm just going to go right to a carbohydrate like a sugar, right? And that's what we do. We find those comfort foods. We even call them comfort foods. We find these carbohydrates that our body thinks we need to fight off something. But because they're lacking in any nutritional basis, we just keep eating them because your body keeps thinking, oh, I'm going to get nutrition soon because I'm just going to keep eating this and it tastes so good. And it triggers some hormones, those dopamine responders, that just start to make you feel good, especially with things like alcohol. I mean, that really triggers dopamine response. And you think, oh, this is great. It's the same with watching a television show or playing a video game or being on your phone and watching things or social media. All these things trigger dopamine inside our brains. And that's what we want because we want to feel good right now because we don't feel good. But this can lead to problems as well because too much sugar or too much screen time can lead to some negative effects in our bodies as well. And this is what happens. We start to gain weight because we're not digesting properly. Remember, that sympathetic system doesn't allow for enough time for things to be digested. And then what you start to see is, oh no, you're gaining weight time after time. And that's a problem. We don't want to do that. The other thing that happens is you cannot protect your body if you're in a stress situation. Your immune system goes way down, especially at night. Do you ever find that you really can't sleep at night when you're stressed? You wake up in the middle of the night when you're stressed? Well, the middle of the night is when your immune system actually strengthens itself. When you're relaxed and you're asleep, your immune system is going on high alert and really working hard to strengthen itself for the next day. But if you're stressed and you're not sleeping well, it doesn't have time to repair. So your immunity goes down, which means you're more susceptible to getting sick. The other thing that happens is we lose passion for life and we lose passion for each other, right? Nothing seems worth it. Nothing seems interesting. No one seems interesting. And that's not a good thing either. The idea of intimacy and relationships with other people is key to a functioning, lively family and a community. And without that, without those hormone levels, we can't relate to each other well. So Harvard tells us that your brain is full of millions of different chemical reactions at one time. So this is a complex system. And for us to get into that complex system, we also have to attack it with something that's just as complex. And if we know anything about essential oils, we know about the beautiful dance that occurs among all the chemicals inside those aromatic, those volatile oils. There's really countless chemicals that we don't even know yet. We're still discovering that are bioavailable. So it means your body can use them. They're adaptogenic, which means that as things in your environment are changing, so are the essential oils. So this is the perfect complement for our stressful environment. So let's talk about a little neurology and a little bit of cofactors. I promise this won't get crazy complicated, but it's important to understand how this works. So serotonin is your confidence hormone, all right? So what makes you want to get up in the morning and not hit the snooze button? What makes you want to try something new or compete at any level, whether it's in school and work, just to feel the confidence to meet someone, to talk to someone, to interact with people you don't know? All of that needs serotonin. And if we don't have enough of it, it can lead to feelings of sadness. And you start to feel like, I really can't do that. I'm really not capable. I'm really not good enough. I'm really not able. When you hear those things inside of yourself, what's happening is you're not producing enough serotonin. Now, remember that enteric nervous system? That system produces most of your serotonin right in your gut. So if you're eating foods that are not healthy, right, and you're not getting those triggers from your nutrition and from outside stimulus, you're also not beginning to feel like you can do things. And that leads to inactivity and disconnection, which is really important. We want to have as connected a world as we can. So the next cofactor is GABA. And we learned a lot about GABA at convention because this is a key component to our adaptive system. And why is it important? I want you to imagine that your nervous system is a little bit like an electrical wire. And we know electrical wires can be kind of a complex intertwining of lots of strings, right? And then it's wrapped with a coat, right? Like a coating or a shell. So that shell is called your myelin sheath. And inside the shell, you have all these neurological synapses. But when the myelin sheath starts to break apart, and though you don't have enough GABA to kind of pull together all of those synapses, it kind of starts to spark, almost like you're getting little fireworks. And that makes you feel anxious, right? You get those anxious feelings like, I don't know what's going to happen. Things are not good. Maybe I should be doing something else. Are my kids studying enough? Am I cooking the right foods? Is my house clean enough, right? So everything starts to get overwhelming. That's what happens when we don't have enough GABA and we start to feel overstimulated and overly anxious. And what do? We kind of draw into ourselves, right? We pull back. Instead of going into life and being happy and joyful and appreciative, we start to feel nervous and anxious, and we want to recoil. We want to go into a closet. We want to remove ourselves from where we are. Now, the next cofactor is an alkaloid. And so the alkaloids, they are able to sustain the serotonin and the GABA, the confidence and the calm. All right. Those two things work really, really well together. You want to be confident, but you want to be calm. And you need the alkaloids to carry you through. And if you don't have that at the end of the day, this is what happens. We try to find comfort in these devices, right? We sit up late at night. Do you know anyone who does this? Are you someone who does this in the middle of the night? Are you checking your email? Are you checking your social media? Are you watching movies? Are you playing games? It's this thing that tries to distract us from the fact that we're not retaining our GABA and our serotonin. Now, in addition, it's not just our nerve cells that we have to worry about. We have to worry about our brain too, because that's command center. That's the part of the body that's really going to run everything else. And so if you're not constantly replacing your brain cells and fortifying them and making them stronger and creating better connections in your brain, then that's going to affect the way you feel as well. And you really need our omega-3s to get that brain strong. Remember, fats build your brain. Your brain is made of fats. So we need those important essential fatty acids in our diets to make sure that we're getting all that good brain nutrition. And without it, this is what happens. We get something called brain fog or a cloudy brain. We start to feel like we can't remember things. We can't process things, we can't focus on things. This happens a lot to students, right? Without that really good omega in their diet, you see a lot of students that are scattered, they're nervous, they're distracted, and it can really be rectified with a really rich diet full of those good omegas. So again, this morning, it's my night, this morning what I want to invite you to do is to stop all of the pressure, all of the stress for right now. And I want you to come into our beautiful world of essential oils and start to use the Adaptiv products so that you can be joyful and learn information and connect with each other and then grow as a community, because that's what doTERRA is about. doTERRA is about putting together a community that will continue to grow, but we have to manage our stress if we're going to still feel confident and calm enough to do that. And so look at this beautiful blend. It really is becoming my very, very favorite blend. When I first smelled it, I loved it. And I loved the fact that it was universally appealing, which was very, very interesting to me. I'm sure you would agree that when you talk to people, they'll say, oh, I like this and I don't like that. One essential oil appeals to one person and another appeals to another person. But our Adaptiv blend seems to have this ability to kind of cross over multiple personalities and interests. And I think it has to do with the fact that it really does pull together from different parts of the plant world. We have 2 tree oils, sweet gum and copaiba. We have 2 florals, neroli and lavender. We have 1 mint, and we have 1 citrus. And so we're going to see that the spearmint and the orange are going to be really uplifting. They're going to trigger a response in your brain and your nervous system that gives you that confidence, that protects your cells. We're going to talk about a really cool thing in spearmint that I'll talk about later called L-carvone. And then on the calming side, we have the beautiful floral lavender and neroli full of linalool to kind of calm us down. And we have the sweet gum and the copaiba to rebuild our brains and the way we process information. So all of this works together really beautifully in this blend. I love this quote, and this is by Helen Keller. If you'll recall, she had lost her sense of taste, she lost her hearing, she lost her ability to speak. So what was she left with? She was left with her sense of scent, which was extremely acute, meaning that it was very, very sharp. Because all of her other senses had fallen apart, she was able to really take in what odor could do and her olfactory system. And what she said was, smell is as potent a wizard, and it can transport you across thousands of miles and all the years you've lived. Isn't that true? Our memories are connected to scent. Sometimes I'll walk into a room and I'll think of someone who has passed on, like my grandmother, and it's because of what I smelled that kind of pulls me back into that moment. Odors instantaneously and fleeting cause my heart to dilate joyously or contract with remembered grief. How interesting that she understood how her sympathetic and her parasympathetic nervous system worked on her heart. She actually could feel it because her senses were fewer and her sense of smell was so acute. So let's continue on into that sense of smell. The olfactory system. I have to tell you, the sense of smell is pretty amazing. It's the first scent that develops in your body as a baby. So when you come out, the most important thing for you to be able to do is to smell your mother. So you know where to get food, right? It makes sense. It's all survival skills. And you can't talk really, and it's hard for you to communicate. So you better be able to find your mom through the sense of smell. So babies have a very, very highly refined sense of smell. And in fact, we know scientifically that a baby can actually tell the difference between two different moms in the same room just by the sense of smell. So let's talk about what happens. We have an odor, and I'm going to talk about, we're just going to take our Adaptiv. So let's say I take a couple of drops of my Adaptiv, put it in my hand, and I take a nice deep breath. What's going to happen? That essential oil is going to go deep into my nasal passages, and it's going to go through the nasal epithelium. Now, these are those little tiny hairs that are going to pull in through the mucus in your nose and create a signal that's going to go transported right to the olfactory bulb in your brain. So it goes through the olfactory bulb to the olfactory cortex, which is where it's located inside your brain. It goes to the part of the brain called the amygdala, which really just sends a signal. And it sends it to the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus will start to trigger a huge response through your nervous system, which does a whole bunch of stuff. It will regulate your autonomic responses, which means things like the way you're breathing and your heartbeat and your digestion, but it also does things that affect your hormones, right? So it'll start producing things like dopamine to make you feel happy. It'll produce things like serotonin to make you feel confident, all of those different hormones, and it will get you acting or reacting depending on the scent that you're breathing. So Adaptiv, what's in it and what's it for? So it's for, I think it's for everyday life, especially now. You know, it's great for your most stressful moments, but I really think this is an everyday essential oil. And I think if you start to use this for 90 days, this is what I say all the time, please, please don't use something and talk to me about it unless you've used it for 90 days, because it takes that long for your body to really assimilate it and use it and make a decision about it. So if you told me I tried Adaptiv once and it didn't work, my response to you would be, please give it 90 days. All right. So if we can all agree that we're just going to give this essential oil blend a full chance, give it that full 90 days before you start to judge whether or not you think it's working. So it's got a lot of influencing potential in this blend. We're going to talk about each individual oil. And it's going to really help keep that balance between the different parts of your nervous system, which we call homeostasis. So the key ingredients are wild orange, lavender, copaiba, spearmint, magnolia, rosemary, neroli, and sweet gum. So all really great essential oils. And the blend is in two forms. So we have the 15 milliliter bottle, which of course you can put in a diffuser or you can just use the way it is. These are very mild essential oils. You should not have skin sensitivity, but of course, if you're concerned about that, if you have really sensitive skin, the best way to test an essential oil for sensitivity is just to put it here on your wrist, wait 20 minutes. If you don't see any redness or discomfort, you're probably able to use it neat. Now, why would I use an essential oil neat versus using it in the form of the Touch, which has fractionated coconut oil in it? Well, if you want your essential oils to go systemically through your blood and to get into your blood and circulate through your body, you really don't want the coconut oil. The coconut oil, being a larger molecule, a carrier oil, a fatty oil, has two really good functions. The first really good function is it keeps it from being too volatile, flashing off the skin, evaporating into the air. If you want an essential oil to stay on your skin, then it's great to have the coconut oil. However, if you don't want that essential oil to sit on the skin, then it's not going to be fully absorbed. And that's why you really do want to use the regular 15 ml undiluted form to go systemically through your body. Now, if you want to diffuse it, also you want it to go into the air so you can breathe it, you want the undiluted. But this one has a great purpose in that it will stay on the skin, which means that you can start to use it like a perfume with a purpose. And the reason I like that is you can put it on your body, right? On your temples, on your neck, on the back of your neck, on your wrists, and you can wear it like a perfume with a purpose. So you're using this to help you stay calm and motivated and focused, and to help manage your weight, and to help manage your sense of passion in life, and to help you sleep at night. So all these wonderful things you're doing while you're wearing a beautiful perfume. So nobody knows that this beautiful scent has all of these other health properties that are going to help you along. So two different forms. This one is more like a perfume with a purpose, and this one is going to go systemically throughout your body, or diffuse it so that it can go through that olfactory system and do its work that way. So let's talk a little bit about each oil individually. We have a few more minutes left. Wild orange. Wild orange is great for protecting your cells. So when we're under stress, our cells can start to break down, because remember that immune system going down? So your immune system goes down. It can't protect your body against different threats from the outside. Your cells start to mutate and fall apart and be affected by different pathogens. You have a choice. The cell should be programmed to self-destruct or go into apoptosis, where we get rid of the bad cells. But sometimes your immune system isn't working properly, and those bad cells, they just start to duplicate or replicate, and that's a dangerous thing. Wild orange, because of the D-limonene inside of it, will protect the cells. So all the good cells get to be replicated, and all the bad cells can start to go away. So there's a detoxifying effect to it. It's also very uplifting, right? So when you smell wild orange, you just feel happy and you feel refreshed. Even when you're stuck inside, it feels like the sunshine is coming indoors. Then we have lavender. So these are kind of counter to each other, right? The orange is very uplifting, the lavender is very calming. We often call this the Swiss Army knife of essential oils, meaning that it has multiple uses. It's going to be really good for your skin, so side benefit to using it just for your mood. It's also going to help with any kind of skin issue you have. So that's why we want to roll it onto our bodies. It's also going to help us regulate our body temperature. It's going to help us sleep at night, and it's going to help us repair our cells. So that's a really good part about the lavender. Then we have copaiba, and we've talked a lot about copaiba over the last year or so because we know how important it is to doTERRA's line of essential oils. This is a big brain builder. This is an essential oil that rivals all the information we keep hearing about different types of cannabinoids, different types of narcotics, and we don't want any of those. We want something safe and effective. We want something that's going into the endocannabinoid system. It's going to help with your memory, help rebuild your brain, help you function, help keep you sharp, and help that neurological system from breaking down, right? We don't want it to break down. We want it to stay nice and strong. And then we have spearmint. Now, spearmint has this really cool molecule component called L-carvone, a chemical called L-carvone. And L-carvone works very much like a mechanism to shut down a pain receptor, which is really great because when you're under a lot of stress, you can feel a lot of pain. And this is going to just shut that off and just say, no, 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 you're fine. There's no reason for you to get those headaches. There's no reason for you to have a stiff neck. There's no reason for you to have any kind of lower back problem, sciatica problem. So I really want you to start taking your spearmint, just aside the Adaptiv, and mix it in with things like Deep Blue and Aroma Touch and Copaiba. These in combination are really, really great essential oil combinations. So they have a very uplifting nature to them as well. It's not just the ability to kind of break down pain. So lots of different aspects of this that are going to be helpful. All right, what else? We've got magnolia. Magnolia, the beautiful tree with the gorgeous flowers, has the highest level of linalool. And linalool is the thing inside lavender that makes you calm. But magnolia has it 90%. So when we're talking about the things that protect our cells, the things that protect our cells are the D-limonene. The essential oil that's got the most D-limonene are things like tangerine and grapefruit. The things that have the most linalool are magnolia and coriander and even neroli. Really good amounts of linalool. And that's super important to tell your body everything is okay. Everything is okay. You can shut down that sympathetic overdrive. Then we have rosemary for our memory. This is also a mint. I don't know if you realize that, but rosemary is a mint, spearmint is a mint. And these mints are very, very good for our brain, kind of wakes us up, creates good pathways, also helps to keep those hormones high, right? Remember when I said we needed things to keep our serotonin levels up, keep our dopamine levels up, keep the GABA up in our body. So this is going to help a lot with that. You're going to feel more alert. You're going to feel more aware, and you're not going to feel as stressed. And then the neroli, of course, really rich in linalool, but also an oil that's known as an aphrodisiac, kind of brings the passion back into your life, right? You have that neroli, you go to bed at night, you don't want to turn on the television or your computer or go and stay up late and work. You want to just enjoy a restful night, a beautiful night, right? That's what you want. And it gives you the passion to wake up in the morning and feel good about life, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what's going on in the world. You can still find a grateful heart. You can still find good works to do, good things to do. And that comes from the nature of some of the things that neroli can stimulate inside of yourself. And sweet gum is really the partner to copaiba. So sweet gum was added, in my opinion, to give that copaiba an extra boost. It's really high in beta-caryophyllene, which is what we see that's very high in copaiba. It's also going to be good at cleaning off receptor sites. It's a good scrubber. It goes into the cells and kind of fixes broken parts of the cell. So it's a really good detoxifier, gives you a good environment, makes you feel calm. So all of these essential oils together are going to work well. So just to kind of group them to help you understand the different components of this blend. We have our linalool oils in the magnolia, the lavender, and the neroli. Those are the super calming ones. Then we have the sweet gum and the copaiba with the beta-caryophyllene. Those are the brain-building essential oils. All right, we need that. And then we have wild orange, spearmint, and rosemary. Those have the limonene. Those are the protectors. Those are going to keep us safe and strong and healthy, right? So we have the immune system boosting there, pain reduction. We have the brain boosting in the middle. And then we have the overall relaxation and calming, so we can get down to the business of living, right? And that's all really important to have. So I hope you're going to use these 2 oils in both ways. Don't just use one or the other. I want you to use both of these essential oils, the roll-on, and please start to diffuse your Adaptiv, especially now that you're stuck at home.
Oh, thank you, Miss Carrie. Was such a great sharing. There's so much things. Even I'm writing it down, and I've been especially learning with the new product. And I believe now all of us knows that we need a set of Adaptiv, especially with us during this MCO. It is really important to keep our minds and emotions at ease, and not only for us but our family and friends also. So we might be able to answer few questions. So I have compiled some questions, but do know that we will choose the question that is related, especially to Adaptiv and emotional essential oil. Okay. So Miss Carrie, I saw there was one question asking that is Adaptiv suitable for acute anxiety problems? Any chance you might be able to answer that?
Yes, actually, we've seen that work really well. One of the things I would say, just as an overall statement, would be make sure that when you're working with someone who has a really acute problem, that they've talked to their doctor about trying an essential oil, they've discussed this idea with them. You don't want people to deal with major illnesses without some type of professional support. But the key to dealing with an acute situation is frequency. So you want to use smaller amounts of essential oils more often throughout the day. You can actually apply an essential oil every 20 minutes. If you're going to diffuse an essential oil, there's a 20-minute rule. So when you inhale an essential oil, you have to allow that oil to get into your body for a full 20 minutes. So not just kind of a couple of breaths and walk away. I would say that would be very important for an acute situation.
Okay, thank you. There's also a question about the difference between Adaptiv and our previous, or I mean that the one that we had before this, which is balance. So any chance you have, question being raised?
I do actually, and I want to just kind of pull my notes because we had, someone had asked me this question earlier, and I just want to go over real quickly. So balance contains spruce, hoe-wood, frankincense, blue tansy, and ozymanthus. And those essential oils are really, by the way, they're really good skin oils, just in case you're looking for a dual reason to use those. But balance is more for grounding, and it is kind of a stabilizing essential oil, but it doesn't have, it works mostly on the brain, but it's not going to trigger the parasympathetic nervous system. So it may help you process information better, but it's not going to help calm that anxious feelings, those anxieties.
Okay, great. I think one last question before we end. Can Adaptiv be used before we go to sleep?
Yes. In fact, I encourage you to use it morning and at night. So here's how you're going to use it. In the morning, I want you to use it with copaiba. And before you go to bed, I want you to use it with serenity. Do you have, what do they call it in Malaysia? Is it peace?
Lavender peace, yeah.
Lavender peace, sorry. So at night, you're going to use it with lavender peace. And if you want, you can actually use it with balance. I like those 3 essential oils together. Lavender peace, balance, and Adaptiv is a great way to get into a routine before you go to bed.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Carrie. I look forward for future activities with you. We know we can learn so much from you, and we do appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning and evening in the States. Do keep safe and healthy with Mr. Fred and your family. Okay, before we end, I just like to remind to all our audience that we will have another great sharing tomorrow. And also is related to managing emotions with EO by one of our local diamond, Dr. Casey Tan. And for those who might know, Dr. Casey has been in the world of counseling for more than 30 years. She is a registered counselor, and she has a clinic managing it. And she has been using doTERRA for more than 4 years, and she has a lot of experience sharing all to people who are in need. So I bet tomorrow will be another great session like today, and we will having it at 3 p.m. So don't forget. So again, Miss Carrie, thank you very much, and thank you to all our audience.
So
We
much.
look forward to see you again. You might not be able to come Malaysia during this period, but at least we can see you through Zoom, and we do appreciate
Yes,
your time.
this is wonderful. I look forward to my next meeting with everyone. Stay safe and healthy.
Yeah,
Thanks again.
and with that, I'll end our session this morning and see everyone again. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye.